The year was 2189, and humanity had long since expanded its reach into the stars. The United Earth Federation, a coalition of human colonies and Earth itself, had become a formidable force in the galaxy. But despite all their advancements, there were still mysteries in the cosmos that even the brightest minds couldn't unravel. Captain Sarah Blake, a seasoned explorer with years of experience, stood at the helm of the starship Intrepid. The crew was on a routine mission, surveying a distant star system on the edge of known space, when they detected an unusual signal. "Captain, you might want to see this," said Lieutenant James Carter, the ship's communication officer. His voice held a note of excitement mixed with apprehension. Sarah moved to his station, where a holographic display showed a pulsing signal of unknown origin. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. "Where is it coming from?" Sarah asked, her eyes narrowing as she studied the data. "From a planet in the system's outer ring," James replied. "It's uncharted and appears to be habitable." Sarah's mind raced. This could be the discovery of a lifetime, or a trap. "Helm, set a course for that planet. We need to investigate." As the Intrepid approached the mysterious planet, its surface came into view on the main screen. It was lush and green, covered in dense forests with vast blue oceans. Yet there was something eerie about its tranquility, as if it was a secret waiting to be uncovered. "Prepare a landing party," Sarah ordered. "We're going down there to find out what's sending that signal." Lieutenant Carter, Chief Engineer Dr. Elena Vasquez, and Sergeant Marcus Hayes, the security team leader, joined her on the shuttle. The atmosphere in the small craft was tense as they descended through the planet's atmosphere, which was thick with swirling clouds. Approaching the signal source, Elena reported, her hand steady on the controls. "It's coming from a large structure ahead." The shuttle touched down in a clearing, and the team disembarked, weapons at the ready. The structure before them was massive, with smooth metallic surfaces that seemed to absorb the light. Strange symbols were etched into its sides, glowing faintly with an otherworldly energy. "What is this place?" Marcus muttered, his hand tight on his rifle. "It looks ancient," Elena whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "But it's still functioning." Sarah led the team toward the entrance, where the signal was strongest. As they approached, a door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dark corridor. Without hesitation, Sarah stepped inside, her team following closely behind. The interior was cold and silent, with walls that shimmered like liquid metal. The corridor led to a large chamber where a single console stood in the center, pulsating with energy. "This must be the source of the signal," James said, moving towards the console. "But what's it for?" Before anyone could answer, the room suddenly lit up with a blinding light. When it faded, a figure stood before them, tall, humanoid, and undeniably alien. Its skin was a deep violet, and its eyes glowed with an intense, unearthly light. "Welcome, travelers," the alien spoke in a calm, melodious voice. "I am Kalen, the guardian of this world. We have been waiting for your arrival." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This was no ordinary mission. It was the beginning of something far greater than they could have ever imagined. The alien, Kalen, regarded them with an unreadable expression as the crew of the Intrepid stood in stunned silence. Captain Sarah Blake was the first to recover, her instincts as a leader kicking in. She took a step forward, meeting Kalen's gaze with a determined look. "Kalen," she began cautiously, "why have you been waiting for us? What is this place?" Kalen's eyes flickered, the light within them intensifying momentarily. "This world is one of the last remnants of an ancient civilization known as the Isheri. We were the protectors of peace in this sector of the galaxy, long before your kind took to the stars." "Elena," Sarah said, keeping her voice steady, "can you verify the authenticity of these claims?" Dr. Elena Vasquez, still fascinated by the technology surrounding them, nodded slowly. "The architecture and energy readings here, they're like nothing we've seen. It's possible that what Kalen says is true. Kalen continued, seemingly unbothered by the crew's skepticism. We have been observing your species for some time. Your rapid expansion, your thirst for knowledge. It is both admirable and dangerous. The signal you received was a test, one that you have passed. But there is more at stake than you realize. Sergeant Marcus Hayes tightened his grip on his rifle, clearly uneasy. And what exactly is at stake? Kalen's expression turned somber. The galaxy is on the brink of a war, one that could annihilate countless civilizations. A malevolent force, long dormant, has begun to awaken. They are known as the Zoreth, a species driven by a desire for absolute domination. They have no mercy, no concept of coexistence. If left unchecked, they will consume everything in their path, including your world. The room seemed to grow colder as Kalen spoke, the weight of his words pressing down on the crew. Sarah felt a knot of fear tighten in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. Why are you telling us this? What can we do? Kalen gestured toward the console in the center of the room. The Isheri left behind powerful technology, designed to counter the Zoreth threat. But it requires a unique energy source, one that only your kind can provide. You possess a resilience, an indomitable spirit that the Isheri recognized as the key to activating this defense system. Elena's eyes widened. You mean, we're the key? Kalen nodded. Yes. Your strength, your will to survive, is what will power the Isheri's last line of defense. But there is a cost. The energy required will be immense, and the strain on your crew will be great. You must be prepared to sacrifice much to save your world and others. Sarah exchanged glances with her team, seeing the determination in their eyes despite the fear. They had come this far together, faced countless dangers, and now they were being asked to confront an enemy that could wipe out entire civilizations. What do we need to do? Sarah asked, her voice resolute. Kalen's expression softened, almost as if he admired their courage. You must journey to the core of this planet, where the Isheri's power source lies dormant. There, you will activate the defense system. But beware, the Zoreth are already aware of your presence. They will not allow you to succeed without a fight. Marcus stepped forward, his voice firm. Let them come. We've faced worse. Kalen inclined his head in respect. Then prepare yourselves, humans. The fate of more than just your world rests on your shoulders. But remember, there is always hope, even in the darkest of times. The Isheri believed in that, and so should you. As Kalen finished speaking, the room around them began to hum with energy, and the walls shimmered with an otherworldly light. The crew felt a surge of determination, a resolve to see this mission through, no matter the cost. Sarah turned to her team, her voice steady but filled with urgency. You heard him. Let's get to the core and finish what we've started. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for the entire galaxy. With Kalen's warning echoing in their minds, the crew of the Intrepid prepared to embark on the most dangerous mission of their lives, knowing that the fate of countless worlds now rested in their hands. The corridors of the Isheri facility seemed to stretch endlessly as the crew of the Intrepid made their way deeper into the planet's core. The air grew heavier with each step, filled with the hum of ancient machinery that had lain dormant for millennia. The walls, once smooth and pristine, now showed signs of age. Cracks and fractures spider-webbed across the surface, and the soft glow from the energy conduits flickered intermittently. Anyone else feel like we're walking into a trap? Sergeant Marcus Hayes muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes darted around, ever vigilant for any sign of danger. Dr. Elena Vasquez glanced at him, her face pale but determined. It's not a trap, Marcus. At least, not one set by the Isheri. But we need to be careful. The deeper we go, the more unstable the environment will become. And if Kalen is right, the Zoreth could be anywhere. Captain Sarah Blake led the way, her hand resting on the hilt of her sidearm. She felt the weight of her responsibility more than ever now. The lives of her crew, and potentially billions more, depended on their success. "Stay sharp," she instructed, her voice calm but commanding. "We don't know what we're up against yet, but we do know one thing: failure is not an option." As they continued their descent, the passageways became narrower, forcing them to proceed in single file. The temperature dropped sharply, and the air grew thin, making it difficult to breathe. They activated their suits' environmental controls, but even with the aid, they could feel the strain on their bodies. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, sending a jolt of fear through the crew. The walls groaned as the tremor intensified, dust and debris falling from above. Sarah raised her hand, signaling for the team to stop. "What's going on?" Marcus asked, scanning their surroundings. Elena checked her scanner, her brow furrowing in concentration. "Seismic activity, likely caused by the planet's core. But it's not natural. Something is disturbing the equilibrium down here." "Or someone," Sarah added grimly. She looked ahead, where the passageway sloped downward into what appeared to be a massive cavern. "Let's move. Whatever's causing this, we need to reach the core before it's too late." The crew pressed on, entering the cavern that opened up before them. It was a vast, hollow space, illuminated by a pulsing light that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the planet. Massive crystalline structures jutted out from the walls and ceiling, their surfaces shimmering with an ethereal glow. The air crackled with energy, and the hum of machinery grew louder, almost deafening. In the center of the cavern stood the source of the light, a colossal structure of alien design, its surface covered in intricate symbols and glowing runes. This was the HFY power core, the key to their defense system. Elena's breath caught in her throat as she gazed at the core. "It's beautiful and incredibly powerful. We're standing in front of technology that's light years ahead of anything we've ever seen." Sarah approached the core cautiously, her eyes scanning the surrounding area. "How do we activate it?" Kalen's voice echoed through the cavern, though he was nowhere to be seen. "The core must be synchronized with your life force. It will draw upon your strength, your will to survive, and use it to power the defense system. But be warned, the process will be physically and mentally exhausting. You must be prepared." Sarah steeled herself, stepping closer to the core. "We're ready. Tell us what to do." Before Kalen could respond, a sudden, high-pitched screech echoed through the cavern, sending chills down their spines. The crew whipped around, weapons at the ready, as shadowy figures emerged from the darkness. They were tall, gaunt creatures with elongated limbs and razor-sharp claws, their eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. The Zorath had arrived. "Contact," Marcus shouted, firing a burst of energy at the nearest creature. The bolt struck its target, but the Zorath merely staggered before continuing its advance. "Fall back to the core," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Elena, get that thing online." Elena rushed to the core, her hands trembling as she began to interface with the alien technology. The symbols on the core shifted and pulsed in response to her touch, as if recognizing her presence. The Zorath closed in, their screeches growing louder as they attacked with relentless fury. Marcus and the others held their ground, firing shot after shot, but the creatures seemed almost impervious to their weapons. "Hurry, Elena," Marcus yelled, slashing at a Zorath that had gotten too close. "I'm trying," Elena cried, her voice tinged with panic. The core resisted her attempts to activate it, the symbols shifting too quickly for her to keep up. "It's not working." Sarah clenched her teeth, knowing the time was running out. They couldn't hold off the Zorath forever. Desperation fueled her next decision. "Elena, stand back." Without waiting for a response, Sarah stepped forward and placed her hand on the core. The moment her skin made contact, she felt a surge of energy course through her, pulling at her very essence. The core responded, the symbols slowing their frantic pace and locking into place. Kalen's voice filled the cavern once more. "The core is responding to you, Captain. Your will is strong. It will guide the activation process. But you must remain focused. Do not let the Zoreth break your concentration. Sarah nodded, closing her eyes as she focused on the core, willing it to activate. The energy around her intensified, and she felt her strength begin to wane, but she pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that this was their only chance. The Zoreth redoubled their efforts, as if sensing that their time was running out. They attacked with reckless abandon, their claws slicing through the air as they tried to reach Sarah. Marcus and the others fought valiantly, but they were being overwhelmed. "We can't hold them much longer," Marcus shouted, his voice strained with exertion. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, the core flared to life, its light intensifying to a blinding brilliance. The Zoreth screeched in agony as the energy pulsed outward, forcing them back. Sarah's eyes snapped open, glowing with the same light as the core. "It's working." Helena cried out in disbelief. "The core is activating." Sarah could feel the power flowing through her, a connection to the ancient HFY technology that defied explanation. But the strain was immense, and she knew she couldn't hold on much longer. "Get ready to move," she called out to her team, her voice wavering. As the core reached full power, a shockwave erupted from its center, sweeping across the cavern and disintegrating the Zoreth in its path. The crew shielded their eyes as the light consumed everything in sight, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. When the light finally dimmed, Sarah collapsed to the ground, her body drained of energy. Alina rushed to her side, checking her vitals. "She's alive, but barely. We need to get her back to the ship." Marcus looked around, still in shock at the sheer power they had just witnessed. What just happened?" Kalen's voice, now soft and distant, answered them. "The defense system has been activated. The Zoreth have been driven back. For now. But this is only the beginning. You have bought your world time, but the true battle is yet to come." Elena nodded, helping Marcus lift Sarah's unconscious form. "We'll be ready." With the core now active and the Zoreth threat temporarily averted, the crew of the Intrepid began their long ascent back to the surface, knowing that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was still in peril, and the burden of its salvation rested heavily on their shoulders. The journey back to the surface was grueling, with Captain Sarah Blake unconscious and the crew weary from battle. Each step felt heavier than the last. The HFY facility's corridors, once a marvel of ancient technology, now seemed like a labyrinth of shadows. The oppressive silence, broken only by their labored breathing, hung over them like a shroud. Sergeant Marcus Hayes took the lead, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. Despite the Zoreth being repelled, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Keep moving," he urged, though the words felt hollow. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked beside Sarah's unconscious form, her face etched with concern. The captain's pulse was weak, her breathing shallow. Whatever connection she had forged with the HFY core had taken a severe toll on her body. Elena had seen miracles in her time, but this was something different. It was as if Sarah had touched the very fabric of the universe, and it had touched her back. As they reached the upper levels of the facility, a faint rumble echoed through the walls. The ground beneath them trembled, and dust fell from the ceiling. "What now?" Marcus muttered, tightening his grip on his weapon. "It's the planet," Elena replied, her voice laced with anxiety. "The core's activation has disrupted the balance. The planet's crust is unstable. If we don't get out of here soon, we could be buried alive." Marcus cursed under his breath. "We're almost there, just a little further." Finally, the crew emerged into the surface chamber where the Intrepid awaited. The ship stood like a beacon in the darkness, its lights cutting through the gloom. They hurried inside, carrying Sarah to the medbay, as the ship's engines roared to life. Lieutenant Commander Anna Lee, the ship's second-in-command, met them as they boarded. Her usually composed demeanor was replaced by visible relief. "We were starting to worry. What's the status?" "The core's online, but the captain..." Elena shook her head, unable to find the right words. Anna's expression hardened. Get her stabilized. We'll debrief once we're clear of the planet. The Intrepid lifted off, leaving the crumbling facility behind. As they ascended through the atmosphere, the planet below began to tremble more violently. Massive fissures opened up across the surface, swallowing the ancient HFY structures in their wake. But the ship broke free, soaring into the safety of space just as the planet began to collapse in on itself. In the medbay, Alina worked tirelessly to stabilize Sarah. The captain's vital signs were erratic, her body locked in a struggle between life and death. "Come on, Sarah," Alina whispered, her hands moving swiftly over the medical equipment. "You've come too far to give up now." Minutes felt like hours as the crew anxiously awaited any sign of improvement. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Sarah's eyes fluttered open. She gasped, her body convulsing as if waking from a nightmare. "Alina," she cried out, her voice hoarse and filled with fear. Alina was at her side in an instant, gently restraining her. "It's okay, Sarah. You're safe. You're on the Intrepid." Sarah's eyes darted around the room, wild and unfocused. "The core, the Zoreth. It's not over. They're coming." Alina squeezed her hand, trying to calm her. "We know, but you're safe now. Rest." But Sarah shook her head, her expression one of desperation. "You don't understand. When I activated the core, I saw things, visions of the past, the future. The Zoreth, they're not just a threat to us. They're a threat to everything. They're going to consume the galaxy unless we stop them." Alina exchanged a worried glance with Anna, who had entered the medbay to check on the situation. "Sarah, you've been through a lot. You need to rest and recover. We'll figure this out." Sarah's grip on Alina's hand tightened, her voice trembling with urgency. "There's no time, Alina. The core, it gave me knowledge, a way to fight them. But we have to act fast. We need to warn the other colonies, prepare for war." Anna stepped forward, her tone firm but gentle. "Captain, we're with you. But first, you need to rest. We can't do this without you at full strength." Sarah hesitated, exhaustion finally taking hold of her. She nodded weakly, her body sinking back into the medical bed. "Okay, but don't wait too long. The Zoreth won't." Alina and Anna watched as Sarah drifted off into a fitful sleep, her mind still haunted by the visions she had seen. They knew she was right. The battle was far from over, and the true test of their resolve was yet to come. As the Intrepid sailed through the void, the crew braced themselves for the inevitable conflict that loomed on the horizon. The Zoreth were coming, and humanity's only hope lay in the knowledge Sarah had gained from the HFY core. But would it be enough to stop the darkness that threatened to engulf the galaxy? The days that followed were a blur of activity aboard the Intrepid. Captain Sarah Blake, though still weakened from her ordeal, took command once more, her determination unwavering. The knowledge she had gained from the HFY core was both a blessing and a curse. It had opened her eyes to the true scale of the Zoreth threat, but it had also left her haunted by the weight of what was to come. The crew worked tirelessly to decipher the ancient data Sarah had brought back, poring over every fragment of information. What they found was alarming. Detailed records of the Zoreth's conquests, planets reduced to ash, civilizations wiped from existence. The HFY had fought valiantly, but even their advanced technology had not been enough to stop the relentless swarm. Sarah knew that humanity stood at a crossroads. They could either unite and fight back with everything they had, or they could fall, just like the HFY. But time was not on their side. The Zoreth were already on the move, and their next target was the heart of human civilization. Aboard the Intrepid, Sarah convened a council of the galaxy's most influential leaders, representatives from the United Earth Federation. The Martian colonies and the various independent systems gathered in the ship's war room. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of the impending war heavy in the air. "We've all seen the reports," Sarah began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. The Zoreth are a threat unlike any we faced before. If we don't unite, if we don't fight together, we will be annihilated. Admiral Talia Winters, the head of the United Earth Federation's fleet, leaned forward, her expression grim. We've fought wars before, Captain, but nothing on this scale. What makes you so sure we can win? Sarah met her gaze with unwavering resolve. Because we have something the HFY didn't, a united front. They fought alone, but we have the strength of a united galaxy. And we have the knowledge the core provided. It's a slim chance, but it's a chance nonetheless. General Cal Andros, the leader of the Martian Defense Forces, crossed his arms. Slim isn't good enough. We need guarantees. What does this knowledge of yours give us, Blake? Sarah took a deep breath. The core revealed to me the weaknesses in the Zoreth's biological makeup. Their hive mind is powerful, but it's also vulnerable. If we can disrupt their neural network, we can cripple their forces. Admiral Winters nodded thoughtfully. And how do we achieve that? We develop a weapon, a disruptor that targets their neural pathways. The HFY were close to completing one before they fell, but they ran out of time. We won't make the same mistake. The room fell silent as the gravity of Sarah's words sank in. This was their one shot, their only chance to turn the tide. General Andros was the first to break the silence. I'm in. Mars will commit all available resources to developing this weapon. Admiral Winters followed suit. The Federation fleet will stand with you, Captain. We'll see this through to the end. One by one, the other leaders voiced their support. The galaxy, once divided by politics and old grudges, was now united by a common enemy. Sarah allowed herself a small moment of relief. The first step had been taken, but the road ahead was long and fraught with danger. Thank you, all of you. Now let's get to work. The Zoreth won't wait, and neither can we. As the council disbanded and the leaders returned to their respective fleets, Sarah remained in the war room, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The Zoreth's approach was marked in red, a spreading stain that threatened to engulf everything in its path. Elena entered the room quietly, sensing her friend's turmoil. You did well, Sarah. They're with us. Sarah nodded, her eyes never leaving the map. But will it be enough? Elena placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. We'll make it enough. Together. Sarah finally turned to face her, a determined fire in her eyes. Then let's get started. The Zoreth won't know what hit them. Weeks turned into months as the galaxy's forces prepared for the inevitable clash with the Zoreth. The Intrepid became the nerve center of the operation, coordinating efforts across vast distances. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, racing against time to develop the disruptor weapon that could tip the scales in humanity's favor. Captain Sarah Blake was everywhere, overseeing weapon development, strategizing with fleet commanders, and boosting morale among the troops. She pushed herself to the limit, driven by the knowledge of what was at stake. The visions from the HFY core haunted her every waking moment, a constant reminder of the dark future they faced if they failed. The day of reckoning finally arrived. The Zoreth fleet, a vast and terrifying armada, entered human space. The sky above the central colony worlds darkened as their ships blotted out the stars, casting a shadow of doom over everything below. The united fleet, assembled from every corner of the galaxy, stood ready to meet the invaders. It was the largest armada ever gathered, a testament to the resolve of a species determined to survive. But even as they prepared for battle, the sheer size of the Zoreth fleet was overwhelming. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Sarah stood alongside Admiral Winters and General Andros, her expression grim. This is it, she said quietly. All our preparations, all our sacrifices, they'd led us to this moment. Admiral Winters nodded. We're ready, Captain. The disruptor is online and primed. We just need to get close enough to deploy it. And that's where we come in, General Andros added, his eyes gleaming with determination. We'll punch a hole through their lines, give you a clear shot. Sarah took a deep breath. steadying herself. Then let's not waste any time. All units, this is Captain Blake. Engage the enemy at will. For humanity, for the future. The command was relayed across the fleet, and the battle began. The opening salvos were devastating. The Zoreth unleashed a torrent of energy beams and missiles, their ships swarming like locusts. The human fleet responded in kind, firing everything they had in a desperate bid to hold the line. The Intrepid weaved through the chaos, its shields flickering under the constant barrage. Sarah barked orders, her voice calm despite the carnage unfolding around them. Focus fire on their lid ships. We need to break their formation. The fleet followed her lead, concentrating their firepower on key targets. Explosions rippled through the Zoreth ranks, but the swarm was relentless, pressing forward with unyielding ferocity. General Andros led a squadron of bombers in a daring run, striking at the heart of the Zoreth formation. The enemy ships reeled under the assault, but they quickly regrouped, their hive mind adapting to the new threat. Admiral Winters coordinated the defense, directing ships to reinforce weak points in the line. But for every Zoreth ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. We can't keep this up forever, she warned. We need that disruptor now. We're almost in position, Sarah replied, her hands gripping the edge of the console. Prepare to deploy on my mark. As the Intrepid drew closer to the center of the Zoreth fleet, the disruptor was primed and ready. But the enemy had anticipated their move. A massive Zoreth dreadnought, bristling with weapons, moved to intercept them. All power to shields, Sarah ordered as the dreadnought unleashed a barrage of fire. The Intrepid shuddered under the impact, alarms blaring as the shields strained to hold. We can't take much more of this, one of the officers shouted. Steady, Sarah said through gritted teeth, just a little closer. The dreadnought closed in, its weapons charging for a final, devastating strike. But before it could fire, a sudden barrage of missiles struck its flank, causing it to veer off course. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise as a familiar voice crackled over the comms. Need a hand, Captain. It was Lieutenant Commander Anna Lee, leading a wing of starfighters on a daring attack run. Thought you could use some backup, she added, her tone light despite the dire situation. Sarah couldn't help but smile. You've got perfect timing, Anna. Keep that thing off our backs. With pleasure, Anna replied, her fighters swarming the dreadnought like angry hornets. With the dreadnought distracted, the Intrepid powered forward, breaking through the enemy lines. We're in position, Sarah shouted. Deploy the disruptor now. The ship's main weapon, a massive energy emitter, fired a pulse of pure, concentrated energy directly into the heart of the Zoreth fleet. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Zoreth ships shuddered and convulsed as the disruptor wave spread through their neural network, severing their connection to the hive mind. Without the hive mind to guide them, the Zoreth ships faltered, their movements becoming erratic and disorganized. The united fleet pressed the advantage, tearing through the enemy with renewed vigor. We've done it, Admiral Winters exclaimed, her voice filled with triumph. They're falling back. But Sarah's victory was short-lived. The visions from the core flashed through her mind once more, a final chilling warning. No, it's not over yet, she whispered. Before anyone could react, the Zoreth dreadnought, its systems barely functioning, initiated a desperate maneuver. It powered up its core, preparing to unleash a massive energy wave that would obliterate everything in its path, including the Intrepid. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah shouted, but it was too late. The dreadnought fired, the energy wave ripping through space towards the human fleet. In a split-second decision, Anna Lee's starfighters broke formation, speeding towards the dreadnought. Anna, what are you doing? Sarah cried out. I'm sorry, Captain. Anna's voice crackled over the comms, calm and resolute. But someone has to stop that thing. It's been an honor serving with you. Before Sarah could respond, Anna's fighters collided with the dreadnought in a blinding explosion, neutralizing the energy wave. but at the cost of their own lives. The bridge of the Intrepid fell silent, the crew stunned by the sacrifice they had just witnessed. Sarah closed her eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to overwhelm her. "Thank you, Anna," she whispered. "We won't forget." With the dreadnought destroyed and the Zoreth fleet in disarray, the battle was won. But the victory came at a great cost, and the war was far from over. The aftermath of the battle was bittersweet. The Zoreth had been dealt a crippling blow, but the galaxy had paid a steep price for its survival. The once mighty fleet was now a shadow of its former self, many ships reduced to wreckage drifting through the void. The dead were mourned, their sacrifices honored, but the living had little time to grieve. On the Intrepid, Captain Sarah Blake stood in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. The weight of the war, the losses they had suffered, hung heavily on her shoulders. But there was also hope, a faint glimmer of light in the darkness. Dr. Elena Vasquez joined her, standing silently by her side. After a long moment, she spoke. "It's over, Sarah. We did it." Sarah nodded, though her heart was still heavy. "We won the battle, but the war, the Zoreth are still out there. They won't stop until they've consumed everything." Elena placed a hand on her shoulder, offering comfort. "But we've bought ourselves time. Time to rebuild, to strengthen our defenses, and we have the knowledge from the core. We'll be ready for them." Sarah turned to face her friend, a small smile finally breaking through the sorrow. "You're right. We've come too far to give up now." In the days that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild. The united forces, once disparate and divided, now worked together with newfound purpose. The disruptor technology was shared with all allied systems, and plans were set in motion to create a network of defenses that would ensure the Zoreth could never threaten them again. Memorials were erected to honor those who had fallen, including Anna Lee and her brave pilots who had made the ultimate sacrifice. Their names were etched into the annals of history, a reminder of the price of freedom. As the Intrepid prepared to depart on a new mission, Sarah gathered the crew for one final address. They stood before her, a group of individuals who had faced unimaginable horrors and emerged stronger for it. "We've been through hell together," Sarah began, her voice carrying the weight of their shared experiences. "But we came out the other side. We fought for our survival, for the future of our species, and we won. But the fight isn't over. The Zoreth are still out there, and they won't rest. Neither can we." She paused, looking each of them in the eye. "But we're not the same as we were when this started. We're stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together, and we will prevail." The crew erupted into applause, their spirits lifted by her words. They knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew they had each other, and that made all the difference. As the Intrepid set course for the next chapter of their journey, Sarah allowed herself a moment of peace. She gazed out at the stars, her heart filled with a mix of sadness and hope. The galaxy had been forever changed by the Zoreth, but it had also been strengthened. The dawn of a new era was upon them, and it was up to them to shape it. And so, with the future uncertain but their resolve unshaken, the Intrepid and its crew sailed into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For humanity, for the future, and for the hope that burned brightly in their hearts.